Now, the Chicago Bears did get encouraging news through this crushing loss to the Minnesota Vikings. I get it. That game sucked. It was hard to watch. What a terrible ending. I mean, we're not going to revert back to the same old Bears and start talking all of this nonsense. As Bears fans, are we going to realize that it's going to take this offense a little bit of time to come together? Everything's brand new. And there's also a lot on defense that we can celebrate. So I'm going to get into that. And I'm also going to get into some particulars about this game because that's really important to be realistic about that as well. A lot of things have to be gotten after by this coaching staff. And also, players need accountability on this too. But there's also a saying here that we got to keep in mind. Week 1 in the NFL, it's a liar. It does not tell the truth. It's week 2 and beyond that really tells you who you really are as a team. And you can also talk about the fact that there's really not a bigger transformation of a football team or reveal of who a football team is than between week 1 and week 2. So I'm not going to blow smoke. I'm not going to be all Pollyanna with you guys. That victory was a huge thing for the Minnesota Vikings and a crushing thing for the Chicago Bears. Let's get to some good news. Let's get to what we should be encouraged about. There was one guy that really impressed me, and it kind of alleviated a lot of the pass rush concerns that everybody was talking about leading up to this season. And you know what? We got to talk about defensive end Dayo Odeyingbo. He was an absolute stud in this game. Now, the Bears had several guys that really stood out on defense. Really, no one stood out like Dayo. He was signed in free agency to a big contract, a lot of criticism about how he was performing in practice and in the preseason. If this is any indication, and Minnesota isn't a cupcake, if it's any indication of what kind of player he's going to be for this team during the regular season, look at this game. Total 2 tackles, 1 tackle for a loss, 1 sack, 2 quarterback hits on top of that, 1 pass breakup. He was an absolutely dominant force all game. He was playing so nice. He made things tough on Christian Darrisaw's replacement at left tackle. And and there are also, we can talk about what the refs did. It was kind of a screw job in some areas. There are a couple really, hard to accept penalties called on Dayo. I thought they were nonsense, but it wasn't enough to ruin this debut for your Chicago Bears. For my Chicago Bears, that's something to really be encouraged by. Another player to really be encouraged by, linebacker Noah Sewell. I think defensive coordinator Dennis Allen, he's cracking the code on some of these players that have been on the team for a while, but have never really fully performed to their potential, to their draft capital. And I think Noah Sewell is one of them. Now you have TJ Edwards, he was sidelined, he couldn't play, but in his 3rd year, he finally stepped into starting role next to Tremaine, and he really did a nice job. He didn't disappoint one bit. Stand out throughout training camp, stand out during preseason, and he was able to really show a lot of potential with live game snaps. So, led the Bears of 9 total tackles. He was all over the field, but I'm going to be honest too, it's not going to be positive here. The guy really... He didn't do well in coverage. That's where he really struggled. But he ended up being more than a respectable replacement for TJ Edwards. But we need TJ Edwards back because even though Noah Sewell was pretty impressive as a fill-in, he is not a complete player like TJ is. But it's really good news. We have depth at linebacker. And you can also argue that Hippolyte might have been a better guy to put in during passing downs. You can argue that point, but let's talk a little more about the defense. I mean, they did fine. They didn't do well covering targets way downfield. You had Aaron Jones get out deep out of the backfield. You also saw a little bit Nahshon White, right? He had the pass interference call. Noah Sewell, he couldn't keep up with players in coverage. So we need TJ Edwards back. I hope he's back this next week. I think Hippolyte would have been better matched on him, for example, on Justin Jefferson, possibly if he had to. Definitely on Aaron Jones. Hippolyte would have been a way better choice if your emphasis was on covering him going out for the pass. But anyways, Sewell's never really been a strong side linebacker in his career so far. He's never really had the ability to play with his back to the line of scrimmage. And you're looking at a right 74-yard touchdown on the interception. That doesn't erase his coverage issues. We need Jalen Johnson back as well. So we're kind of looking at as a defense as a whole, 3 sacks, 3 tip passes at or near the line of scrimmage. Pretty good pressure. It was enough to limit JJ to 143 yards in his rookie debut, but everything fell apart in the fourth quarter, and that's what really the shame was. And the Bears also did what they always do for you guys that have been fans for a long time. Absolutely dominate a half of football. They actually dominated 3/4 of football, but while dominating, while passing the eye test as the better team on the field, they didn't get the ball into the end zone and allowed the Vikings to keep hanging on and hanging on and hanging on and hanging on. And big surprise, they lost that game. So kind of looking at the run defense, there are some issues covering Jones as far as pass coverage, but he only had 23 yards on 8 runs. I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at. He was the one that he burned the defensive back packages that the Bears had out there. But as far as a pure runner, he was held in check. 68 yards on 15 carries to Mason. That's not a good yard per run average. It's really the 14-yard scramble touchdown by McCarthy. That was really the only thing that really stood out as far as the Bears not being able to stop the run. So I'm not hating that. You're looking at Dio once again, the quiet training camp. So much concern, so much talk that GM Ryan Poles made a mistake with Dio, but he absolutely proved everyone wrong here. Just an absolute menace from start to finish. He has an eye and a nose for the ball. It appears he was always where the ball was. And if this kind of keeps going, you're going to look at somebody like Montez Sweat that isn't going to get doubled every game, isn't going to get doubled constantly. Just really good to see. Trevon Dexter, really good performance. I liked what I saw there. And Nashawn Wright, what do you say when sure, we want Jalen Johnson back, but when you have a guy just come in from almost nowhere, he was impressing during the preseason, and for that type of performance to take it to the house for 74 yards, his first career pick 6, just a really good thing to see. So this cornerback room is going to be deep. Nashawn Wright has some versatility. He could possibly do some safety in a pinch, but when Jalen Johnson gets back, that's going to be a huge peace of mind. Let's kind of get to some of the other things too, because what I didn't like about this game, you've got Caleb Williams, and this was brought up on Good Morning Football today. They really outlined this so well. I'm going to steal from it for just a little bit. But you looked at Caleb Williams playing so well within structure this first drive, right? This first drive playing so well within structure. And then guess what? Play broke down. He freelanced. He went over to the left side, ran in the touchdown. And Good Morning Football, they said it. They're like, it's almost like you saw something audibly click in his mind that the rest of the game, it looked like a player that was not listening to coaching or didn't care what Ben Johnson had to say. He looked like he was playing sandlot football the whole rest of the time. Just everything freelance, holding the ball for too long, trying to put on a Superman cape and figure it out himself. Wildly inaccurate. Footwork looked poor. Now, I think this is just one game. I'm not going to say like a bunch of idiots are saying right now, bring in Tyson Bagent, let him start right away. Absolutely not. I think that's ridiculous at this point. But yeah, footwork didn't look good. kind of approach to the game didn't look good. This looked like a player that was not listening to his head coach, by my estimation, because that's not the type of offense that Ben Johnson runs. His offenses, they thrive on timing. They thrive on getting the ball out quickly. They thrive on precision. And you can look at the film and you can see guys open all over the field. And Caleb Johnson was still getting back to his old ways, just absolutely not pulling the trigger there. You guys let me know what you think in the comments. You always do. Kind of some positives. He only finished with 2 sacks taken. That could have been way, way higher. I mean, you're also looking at like Joe Thuney. He played really well. Jonah Jackson left a lot to be desired, and I'm not even talking about the penalties, but their offensive line wasn't doing him tons of favor. Like if you look at what Next Gen Stats pointed out, all 3 of the Bears' newly acquired interior linemen, Joe Thuney, Drew Dahlman, Jonah Jackson, they yielded at least 4 pressures to just the duo of Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen alone. Like it wasn't all roses. This offensive line still needs to gel. Caleb Williams faced pressure this whole game. It was just the way that he reacted. He chose to freelance instead of staying within the offense and getting the ball out of his hands. Wildly inaccurate. Not a bunch of stuff to love, but there's a lot of encouragement here, most notably for the defense. Most notably that when you have a solid offensive line, there's always hope. I think Caleb is going to be just fine. This is a little hiccup getting used to this offense, but you better believe Ben Johnson is going to be a jerk this week getting this offense back in line. Next up is the Detroit Lions, right? The Detroit Lions. I have so many friends that are Detroit Lions fans, and it is crazy coming into the season and still now how Detroit Lions fans can actually believe that you can lose your Pro Bowl center. You can be putting a rookie in. You can be shifting players over and carry the 4 and moving objects around on the offensive line and expecting not to miss a beat, that you can lose your offensive coordinator and your defensive coordinator. 7 coaches in total. You can just plug in an offensive coordinator who's, frankly, he's never called plays for an NFL offense. Not that I've seen. He definitely hasn't been in that position for a really long time. He's been a quality control coach. I'm not even sure what his job was previously. But they have this excuse that, yeah, he was on the staff when Ben Johnson was installing the offense. He was a big part of that, yada, yada, yada. It's actually the head coach's offense. That's a funny one. It's just kind of crazy, just the arrogance of Detroit Lions fans. After they've only been good for 2 years, they feel like they're infallible. I think so many holes in their offensive line was shown against Green Bay. And also this offense just isn't going to be the same without Ben Johnson. That's my take. Now, whether the Bears are going to be able to take advantage of these flaws and bring a win home, I don't want to hear that the Detroit Lions are angry with Chicago coming in. You better believe that the Chicago Bears are angry as well. And I would much rather have a squandered opportunity than to absolutely get boat run by a division rival. The Bears showed that they belong in this competitive NFC North, and they're really going to show that they belong against the Detroit Lions. I feel really good about it, but we're going to kind of break things down leading into that game throughout the week. I'm going to continue to be here on the daily. Hit the subscribe button, smash the like button. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk soon. Bear down.